Niestety nie będzie pana profesora Gawlikowskiego, który się rozchorował. W związku z tym ja zostałem upoważniony przez pana profesora do prowadzenia dzisiejszego spotkania. Drugi komunikat jest trochę bardziej skomplikowany, a mianowicie będzie to, nasze spotkanie będzie się odbywało w takiej formule jakby mieszanej. To znaczy gros wystąpień będzie po angielsku, natomiast też bardzo prosimy o udział państwa też w języku angielskim. Natomiast gdyby była taka sytuacja, że ktoś się nie czuje zbyt mocno w języku angielskim, może spokojnie oczywiście wypowiadać się w języku polskim. Ja tutaj będę się starał, prawda, ewentualnie tłumaczyć, jeżeli byłaby jakaś potrzeba w pomocy w tym zakresie. W takim razie rozumiem, że pewne ogólne zasady zostały określone. I teraz chcę zapowiedzieć dwoje naszych panelistów, którzy będą koncentrować się na problemach związanych z wymianą głównie gospodarczą, współpracą gospodarczą pomiędzy Polską a Chinami. Jest to niezwykle ważny i też powiem, że również trudny problem. Natomiast mamy szczęście, ponieważ tutaj jest ze mną dwoje osób, które są niezwykle kompetentne w tych sprawach. Chciałem bardzo serdecznie przywitać pana prezesa Sławomira Majmana, który przez wiele lat kierował Polską Agencją Informacji Inwestycji Zagranicznych, a pozostaje cały czas, jest związany z wymianą gospodarczą Polska-Chiny. Zresztą jego curriculum vitae załączone jest w materiale, który był rozsyłany internetem. Mamy również panią Yu Yang, która jest również specjalistką w kwestii relacji polsko-chińskich, choć nie tylko. Była bardzo aktywna w czasie wystawy światowej w Szanghaju w 2010 roku. Później pracowała w Polsce, później w Londynie, prawda? A obecnie ponownie pracuje w Polsce. Zajmuje się sprawami, które też są związane z wymianą gospodarczą, z handlem polsko-chińskim. Nie chciałbym zbyt długo zabierać państwu czasu, ponieważ, jak mówię, mamy do czynienia z dwójką rzeczywiście doskonałych specjalistów i z całą przyjemnością oddaję głos panu prezesowi Majmanowi. Proszę bardzo.
Proszę Państwa, jeżeli Państwo pozwolicie, z uwagi na naszego gościa z Chin, ja będę mówił po angielsku. Jeżeli cokolwiek, co będę mówił po angielsku, wzbudzi Państwa wątpliwości, proszę podnieść rękę, wtedy się jakoś zinterpretuję sam, dobra? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador, I'm deeply touched. This time I got a chance to be on this side of this room instead of being on my usual place, which is somewhere here. Thank you, lady. You are occupying a good place. Let me make a very short introduction to summarize what is the current state of the Chinese-Polish business relations with a little bit of a history at the very beginning. I'd like to emphasize one more point. I know this is Warsaw, this is your university, but both Madame Yu Yang and me it's a shame. We are working for Jagiellonian University in the place called Krakow. So sorry. Let me come back to beginning of the 50s. And it was 2 years after proclaiming the People's China. And China, as some of us still can remember, Ambassador, was boycotted by the People's China, has been boycotted by Western powers. First of all, United States of America, and Chinese goods were not allowed on Chinese ships into West European and American harbors. And in the city of Tianjin, they decided that they will try to create a joint venture company, Chinese-Polish, to enable Chinese goods to get to the Western ports on the vessels parading Polish flag. However, the idea was to make it with a Polish capital, which was 100% in 51, the communist capital, but there were still some very vigilant comrades who said, oh, come on, foreigners, People's China, is it proper? And they reached the top level in China. They reached Mao Zedong, they reached Chairman Mao and asked and shared their hesitation. And Mao Zedong said, how, gun, do it, simply do it. And actually, this joint venture company, which as you may know still exists and is quite prosperous, the shipowner corporation, Chipelbrock, was the first historical step of our bilateral relations with China, but as well, it was absolute pioneer of the foreign capital in People's China. Just to remind you, foreign direct investments of China within 10 years increased 25 times. China became number 2 foreign investor in the world. But the first case of any FDI in China was this Polish case. For many years, China was not interested with Poland. Actually, it happened after the Polish transformation and the transformation with some other in some other countries. But first of all, the Polish transformation and the period we call the shock therapy. The concept of reforming Polish economy was so distant to the concept of reforming of a Chinese economy started by the short man from Sichuan in 78 by Deng Xiaoping. That the Chinese leadership decided there is nothing to pick up from the Polish experience. And this dramatic transformation of the planned economy into market economy was too violent. It was too far away from the Chinese mentality and Chinese concept of reforming the country. Somebody reminded me today, by the way, let me make a short sideline. Somebody reminded me today that before proclaiming Chinese reform program, during these preparations and the discussions, because it was not like that, those Chinese reformers jump out and said, okay, in one day let's change China. But it was like it's always in China, the long process of discussions, looking for proper formulas. But important part of this process were 3 gentlemen from Eastern Europe who were meeting Chinese leaders, who were meeting Chinese economists. Some were in the mountains, in the state houses, sort of a state hotels. And these 3 gentlemen were Professor Włodzimierz Brus from Warsaw University, very eminent economist, rejected in Poland. It was Professor Otasik, former Deputy Prime Minister of Czech Republic during Czechoslovakia during the Czechoslovak Spring, as well rejected in his own country, and Hungarian economist János Kornai, who, however, was not rejected but was treated as somebody operating rather on the margins of the official economy. And these 3 people from Eastern Europe are one of the belong to the founders of this fantastic Chinese economic transformation Congratulations, Dr. Yu Yang. All right, and this lack of interest in the concept of Polish economic transformation was the reason that China was late for Poland. China was late for Central and Eastern Europe. And it is understandable. China was very busy with quite painful internal processes of reforming the enormous country. China was very busy with economic expansion to the Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia, then Africa, then America, and finally Western Europe. But at the same time, Poland was late to China. And I don't mean that Poland was late to China because Germany was there, and then Britain was there, and France and Italy was there. But China was late. Poland was late to China because even Hungary and Czech Republic and some other countries from our region were there before us. And the first time in reality where Chinese started the exciting process of rediscovering Central and Eastern Europe and rediscovering our country was the visit of a Chinese Prime Minister, Wen Jiabao, and proclamation of the 16+1 platform. 16 Central Eastern European countries plus one, which is China. Yes, 2012, yes. 2012, we had the pleasure to organize the economic part of the visit of Wen Jiabao and meetings with Polish leaders, including Donald Tusk. China is an empire. And empires tend to look at the map in a very special way. There are plenty of little dots in the Central and Eastern Europe. And to make life easier, Chinese put into one basket all possible eggs. Members of European Union and non-members of European Union, Balkan countries and Baltic countries. Actually, the only the countries which had not too much with each other to do, and first of all, which didn't have too much with each other to do in economy, in trade. But they were more or less in the same part of the map, and that they created a region. And secondly, there were former communist countries. We could be very, very much critical about the 16+1 because, in my opinion, it's not working. The only form of existence of this 16, now it's 17+1 because last year Chinese said, okay, come on, why shouldn't we add Greece? And they added Greece as an Eastern European country, of course. The only form of operation of the 16 or 17+1 are annual meetings of prime ministers when they declare the number of investments and the various international initiatives. There was a number of permanent secretariats of the 16+1 created a few years ago. Our guest, Madame Yu Yang, was in charge of one of them. 16+1 secretariats for investments. But I remember last year when the Chinese delegation came to Warsaw, because Warsaw is a residence of 3 secretariats: promotion, investments, and maritime economy. And I remember we were fighting in the Chinese Ministry of Foreign Affairs to get as many secretariats for our country because we have 40%, almost 40% of the whole Central Eastern Europe of the whole 16. And the Chinese delegation last year arrived to come here and before the next Prime Minister Summit to find out what the secretaries achieved. They simply couldn't find them. They simply couldn't find them because, okay, somebody got it, then there was a change of government, somebody forgot about them. And actually they don't exist. Yes, I can make this list of shortcomings of 16+1 initiative. I can continue with the list of the shortcomings of the 16+1 initiative, but what is absolutely positive, glamorous about the 16+1 is that thanks to the 16+1, for the first time after '89, Poland and our neighbors were put into the official governmental and business agenda of China. Let me say a few words about let me say one more sentence. With all due respect to Madame Yu Yang, we very often tend to overestimate Chinese. We very often tend to overestimate Chinese official institutions. The point is that the knowledge of that we know much more about China than Chinese know about us, which is in a way natural. But as I have said, that the Chinese are just rediscovering after a long break this part of the world, and they are rediscovering Poland. Their knowledge about Poland, including people keeping official posts in the ministries of commerce, in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, in the Chinese corporations, state-owned corporations, their knowledge about our country is relatively limited, to put it mildly. And this is the reason of a number of mistakes which happen more and more. Maybe these mistakes are not so often like they used to be 10 years ago, but there are still very exciting cases that Chinese top managers are mixing up Lithuania and Latvia and asking me a very exciting question: when we finally join European Union. Once again, it's natural. It's natural. Poland is not in very focus of the Chinese business interest. And now let me say what I want to say, why this forgotten Europe is still not a priority for Chinese business, for Chinese state-owned corporations, for Chinese officials, and for private business as well. First of all, when we were expecting enormous amount of Chinese investment, because we used to expect enormous amount of Chinese investment coming into Poland after signing one stage of the strategic partnership with China, and signing the second stage of strategic partnership with China, after one visit, another visit, third visit, fourth visit, whatever. And we expected this enormous, that the Chinese will come with plenty of money to Poland and build the infrastructure, build factories, and so on. But it never happened. Actually, there's almost no Chinese business presence in Poland. The value of Chinese investments in the Polish investment pie is less than 1% so far. Then what's the basic reason? It's Chinese rationalism. If Chinese go to Europe to invest, they are looking either for technologies, or they are coming for brands. Poland is not a country, it's not just about Poland, it's about the whole region. Seen from Beijing, Central Eastern Europe, including Poland, is the source of too little modern technologies to engage into some major investments. It's not like in Germany, where Germany is compelled to defend its technologies. It's compelled to defend its factories from the Chinese investors. You may have heard about the discussion 2 or 3 years ago when the Chinese investment fund Midea decided to buy a German leader in robotics. Finally, they bought it, but after long dispute. This is the first thing. The second thing is there's certain risk elements. I don't know, in almost all business schools all over China, students are studying the case of Kovac. Let me remind you, it was in 2009, when a Chinese company, Kovac, very experienced company, which built thousands of highways and thousands of railways all over Africa, first of all, and China and Africa, win the first ever tender in European Union to build a highway for European money. It was not dramatically big project, but from the Polish point of view, it was a very special project. Because we here in Poland were the first country which commissioned Chinese companies to build for European money in EU country. And the result was a catastrophe. Kovac never finished the project. Actually, they ran away from the construction site. And only in 2017, 10 years after some legal proceedings and negotiations run by 3 Polish prime ministers, we got some money, we got our due money back. But what happened? The winner of the tender, the company itself, was a prime company building first-class infrastructure for many, many years. The team they sent to us were the team of fantastic people who made a tremendous success in Kenya, Tanzania, and Uganda. They win a tender. And to make a long story short, they decided to copy their experience with other overseas markets into our experience. The experience was, first of all, we shall go to the minister 2 months after winning tender and say, oh, sorry, it's more expensive. Let's change the contract. They couldn't understand that this country, as all European countries, is ruled by the public procurement law. Okay, there was a number of other reasons, and for instance, they were boycotted by the Polish suppliers. Surprise, surprise, they couldn't find enough technicians from China and engineers to come here. And they made a decision. I'm always asking my students, what would you do if you are CEO of Kovac? Would you run away? Because running away saved them from the fate of many Polish companies building highways who gone bankrupt. Because they finished the job and they lost money. Polymex, for instance, yeah. Or would you stay and finish according to the contract? They decided to run away. I would stay. I would stay because the immediate result is that 10 years after, when any company appears in any tender in Poland, companies from China, everybody is reminding, Kovac, they are the same people who live there from the same country as the Kovac who failed, who destroyed the job. But let's be positive about this part of our conversation about Chinese infrastructure construction. Poland is the only EU country where Chinese companies are winning tenders. Chinese companies are regulated River Odra in Wrocław. They are building the electrical grid in north of Poland. They went 2 tenders just recently on the highway surrounding Kraków Ring and our Zakopianka highway as well. It's not like that they are not winning tenders. They are. And investments, Chinese investments in Poland. Chinese are very seldom in Europe doing greenfield investments. Greenfield means that they come, they dig the hole in the land and build a factory from the scratches. What Chinese do, they are buying existing business and manufacturing plants. Actually, as I said before, there's not too much to buy in Poland. But the statistics I mentioned, these very low statistics illustrating Chinese involvement into Poland, are not 100% real. Because there is a number of Chinese investments which in our statistics are not Chinese, but they are really, really significant. For instance, there are investments of a Chinese-owned investment fund from the United States. Everybody knows Krakowschem, Kabanosy. Anyway, Animex products are Chinese. Our Kabanosy, ladies and gentlemen, are already Chinese, not just Volvo cars. National speciality of Poland during the last couple of years is we are number 2 exporter in Europe. There are spare parts and components for automotive industry. The largest manufacturing plants in the spare parts and components for automotive industry is the company called Delphi. There are I think three factories in Poland, or 2 big factories in south of Poland. They are Chinese owned via America. I'm sure Madame Yu Yang knows much more examples like that. Yeah, okay, 2 minutes more. Yes, sure. And let me make a short stop at the beginning of at the period after elections 2015, when we got a peace government and the current ruling bloc. And I would say it was the most fruitful period. It was the most fruitful period in the economic relations between Poland and China. For many reasons, probably some people in the current ruling camp came to the conclusion that there is a possibility to somehow play a little game, compensating relations with Germany and other countries and improving relations with China. We got 1 month after election, Andrzej Duda went to China, absolutely amazed by Chinese national grant program, Belt and Road. Duda said, oh my God, I'm quoting Duda, fine. Andrzej Duda said that it's the greatest geopolitical project of the 21st century. Remember. 7 months later, we got it's very short reciprocity period in diplomacy. We got a Chinese leader Xi Jinping in Warsaw. Then we got the next year the Madame Szydło, the prime minister. It was sort of a spring in this relations. And what happened? Nothing happened. There was a number of projects designed for Chinese investors, like CPK, Central Communication Hub, Centralny Port Komunikacyjny, which was created, we can swear with Madame Yuang, it was created to bring Chinese financiers, Chinese investors, and Chinese airport operators into Poland. There were 2 or 3 projects connected with ports and harbors, designed for Chinese. And since this visits, 2015, 2016, 2017, this project didn't move a single inch. Because what happened? The name of the game dramatically changed, because the name of the game for Poland as well and Sino-Polish relations is called now United States of America. The dramatic modification of on the global scene has frozen any plans to dynamize this investment relations with China, plus this problem we have always with Chinese, and everybody in the world got with Chinese. Yes, we shall invest, we shall build the first-class infrastructure, providing you lift your public procurement law. It means the job will be given to Chinese companies without tender. You took our money. It's another long story, but let me just mention that Chinese financing instruments, both within the 17+1 package and including even the investment funds Chinese recently created for our region, that the Chinese money are not attractive for EU members having access to structural funds, to World Bank money, and so on and so on. And you lift your public procurement law, you took our money, which are credits, They are not gifts coming from Beijing. And it was the end of the dream about the huge Chinese investment projects in our country. And final sentence, what's happening now is a sort of a trap. It's a trap between our high expectations and equally high disappointment. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, I think. And now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Yu Yang. Please, the floor is yours.
I'm sure she will be more optimistic than me.
And thank you very much, Your Excellency. Thank you for being here. I think as most of you are students or people interested in Chinese market at least, so I would like to focus on two words. One, opportunities. Second, risks. As I'm working in Dentons, responsible for the strategic investment department, so this will be also my capacity and my know-how to share with you. So Ms. Mama has already shared with us the status quo of Poland-China cooperation, including lots of obstacles, lots of opportunities, what we have been doing so far. But if we look in the larger, in the bigger picture, first of all, we look back 30 years since the fall of the Berlin Wall, and we can notice that easily, according to Reuters statistics, which are the largest, which are the fastest growing market in the world. Noticeably, two major markets. First is Central and Eastern Europe. Second is Asia, led by China. And congratulations for Poland in this regards. Poland has already emerged as the #1 economy in the region, with the GDP ballooned by 600 billion and enormous growth of the stock market in the Warsaw Stock Exchange. And if we look at the other side of the market, China, which is also quite obvious, now China has an economy worth nearly 14 trillion US dollars per year. So it has been gradually opening since the 1978, which is almost one decade earlier than Poland, which is also quite a noticeable growth rate. So congratulations to Polish people. I really admire the economic, social, and political achievement by the Polish people. And if we look into the 21st century, so now it's 2019, where are the opportunities? Definitely, we're all experts in Poland with Ambassador, with Mr. Majman, the former chair of Polish investment agencies. But I would also like to draw your attention to the market opportunities in China. So first of all, as you might know, that over the past 30 years development in terms of the global value chain distribution, China has already moved from the labor-intensive industries, let's say labor-intensive, low-cost, low-end industries, to develop into the full value chain, especially the capital incentive industries, which is medium level manufacturing. So China currently is now aiming at the advanced manufacturing, which was led by conventional United States and Western economies. So that's why there is lots of competition or even conflict exists so far. And on the other hand, as you might notice, the different paths which Poland has taken and which the Chinese government took totally different, is that while Poland took the shock therapy in a very short period, drastic change for the free market, while China has adopted the state-dominant economic model. We call it a China model led by the state, which is different from the Polish model, which is dominated, which is, I would say, popular among the Western economies, the free market free market model. So in this regard, we notice the enormous strength of the Chinese state-owned enterprises, which is highly competitive in various markets, and as well as the development of the private sector. We will see in the recent years, especially in the very recent 10 years, we will see that we have already witnessed it in terms of the Chinese outbound. It's no longer that dominated by the central state-owned enterprises. Lots of private companies in China has also taken lead. And in particular, if we look at the statistics based in, for example, Shanghai. Shanghai, we know the market, the economy is consists of private sector, the state-owned, and the foreign investment as well. And we witness majority in terms of the deal, number of deals. A majority of the deal currently is led by private sector already. So we can witness the enormous achievement so far in the Chinese economy. But what will be the opportunities further? We have noticed that the Chinese government has dedicated to the further reform of the state-owned enterprise, which can be an opportunity for private sector as well as for foreign investors. And additionally will be the reform of the financial market. We know so far China has become the, in terms of the bond market and the stock market, China has been both in ranks number 2 in the world. And we know the Chinese central bank, the People's Bank of China, has enormous capacity to ease monetary and to run fiscal policy as well to support the stable economic growth of the Chinese economy, despite the fact that the growth rate has been lowered compared with years ago. It's no longer double digit, it's no longer 7%, or it could be lower than 6.5 or even 6%, but it's still a sizable, keep growing, relatively stable economy in the global sense. And if we look into the specific sector, I would like to draw your attention to, for example, the high-tech industry, which is mainly the private equity market, and lots of venture capitals from China, based in China, has also played an important role. If we look at the global shares of global unicorns by count, we see U.S. occupies 47%, and China occupies 34%, and the rest, the 19%, is the rest of the world. And if we look at the global venture capital investment in the leading economies, in terms of fintech, number 1 China, number 2 US, number 3 Great Britain. And in terms of artificial intelligence and machine learning, which is artificial intelligence is a great topic in the 21st century. We will see number 1 USA, number 2 Britain, number 3 China, number 4 Japan. And in terms of the wearables, number 1 US, number 2 China, number 3 it's the EU, it's called Germany. And in terms of virtual reality, number 1 US, number 2 China, number 3 Japan. And in terms of education technology, number 1 US, number 2 China, number 3 Japan, number 4 Great Britain. In terms of autonomous driving, number 1 US, number 2 China, number 3 Japan. And this is the shares. And if we look at the shares of global unicorns values, in terms of values, because in the beginning I talked about the shares, now we talk about the value, is US occupies 45%, while China occupies 43%. So the rest of the world occupies only 12%. And if we notice this week, Alibaba has did the second IPO in Hong Kong, and it's another record-breaking ever in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. We know that its first IPO in US already achieved records at that time. Now it's the new era. And if we look at the Chinese domestic capital market, we have also maintained a steady growth. And together with the total foreign holdings of Chinese assets, it's remain very steady growth. So this is what we see the opportunity. And in terms of wherever there is an opportunity, there is a risk. For Chinese companies, there are opportunities in Poland. There are also risks in Poland. And it doesn't matter Poland or US, vice versa. So for us, the most important is to have an open mind. For me, the biggest risk is unnecessary, the local risk, be it in China or Poland. The biggest risk is not to be open-minded, so that will cause you to miss opportunities. And miss opportunities could mean you could be lag behind. For example, to be blunt, I think in terms of technology development, Poland lags behind in this respect. So I think this is definitely the opportunity that we can work on together. So I would like to leave more room to the questions, if any, in the room. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Yu Yang. And now I hope that our colleagues and ladies and gentlemen present here have some question and maybe some things to say about that passionate subject. Please. Bardzo proszę. Please, you come here to the carré here.
Mikrofon i kamera, zdaje się.
No, please, it is on this...
Nawet bez profesora Gawlikowskiego.
Nawet.
Marta Tomczak, Polska Akademia Nauk. Okay. I have two questions. One is going to be about the past and your experience, Monsieur, about working in the secretary of the 16+1 whatever for investment. Was there anything going on? And if it were, was it coming from China? Was it coming from other countries? Was there any discussion on anything? Was it a year thing, 2-year thing? When was it closed? And the second question is about Chinese investment in technology. Because what we know is we've got a couple of Chinese companies here selling products. Or if they do some R&D they usually do it for those products they work on, but basically it's all happening in China. So what they use the market for is to sell. Do we know any examples of those big Chinese technology companies actually investing in technology outside of China? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You want to ask? No? Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much, Honorable Lady. Very good question, by the way. I have the great honor to be engaged from the very beginning of 16+1 initiative. Now it's a 17+1 since this year until 2016. So basically, I have this 5-year experience. What I see is this initiative is led by Beijing. And lots of proposals, initiatives, financial policies, including the national including the credit line, as well as the private equity, and covering various sectors, very strategic. As you might know, in China we have 5-year economic development plan, so it's very much based on this Chinese long-term strategic planning. So I would say that 5 years started from former Premier Wen Jiabao's visit, witnessed by, hosted by the then Prime Minister Donald Tusk, till the state visit of President Xi Jinping in 2016, hosted by President Duda, Prime Minister Morawiecki. It was the golden age in my year, in my opinion, to really develop and dedicate it to the bilateral relations since 1989. Of course, we can date it back to 49 or 50, 1950. That's a different story, because both economies, both societies are totally different. So in my opinion, both sides are very positive, remain positive in terms of the economic cooperation prospect. What we see is that lots of Chinese companies are highly globalized already. So many companies dealing with Western economies, especially in terms of distribution. If we go higher, R&D sector. For example, we know that Huawei has a R&D center in UK, and so far, if you ask me if anyone has established R&D center, based on my knowledge, there are like Huawei, they have an R&D program with university, Polish university, and there are one of the greatest investment from China, it's called Nuktak. They opened their manufacturing base not long time, very recently. Beautiful factory, high European level, European Union level standard. Although they still have the key main R&D center in Beijing, but they already started also with Polish universities in some specific area, because it's very specific nuclear area, nuclear detection, so technology-wise, high-tech wise. And we see more Chinese initiatives in this regard, so the trend is pretty steady. And also in terms of, I mentioned particularly the financial market reform in China, there are lots of opportunities because we know China has already grown from the market of the world, from the factory of the world to market of the world to R&D center of the world, as well as be the market capitalization of the world. So this is also what we see very interesting.
Thank you very much. Only one sentence. China is engaged in the realization of the program of the new technologies. The program is called Made in China 2025. And that program is one of the main reason of the so-called trade war between United States and China, because true reason of the war is competition in the new technique and new technologies. Please, pan profesor, bardzo proszę. In English or Polish is up to you.
My name is Halizak, and okay. So I do my research on U.S.-China relations. U.S.-China relations. I am arguing that United States and China are on the verge of new Cold War. They start just a new cold, and in the form of hegemonic war. And your view convinced me that I am very right, especially your opinion on a central communication port. My question is, besides, I'm very familiar with the Chinese institution, because as university, we have a common program, Polish Plus, with the Chengdu University, which is well structured and totally supported by the authorities of two universities. So my question is connected with the Huawei and G5 technology. Is this biggest multinational firm, Chinese, is a hostage of the US-China relations, and Poland is a victim of this hegemonic war? Do you agree with my opinion?
Yeah. Okay. Would you start? You go first. Okay. Let me just start discussion about it. Okay, let's put it this way. Let's start with the perception. Since we joined the pro-American stance in the case of Huawei, and actually as the first visible episode of this Poland joining the American route was January this year, when the Polish state security, together with advised by Americans, arrested two alleged spies connected with Huawei. Since that time, and the perception of Poland in China dramatically went down. Those of you who knows China, the majority of you knows China, know that people, especially in the official relations, are not Chinese officials and Chinese media people are not so open in expressing their resent. It happened with me already several times, and the first time I think it was in February when I was in China in March, when people who were not connected with politics, no officials, just people we know from various places, were coming to me and saying, Chinese internet is full about of devastations about the role of Poland as a watchdog of America in the war against China, Huawei. This was the reason. By the way, I was 2 or 3 weeks ago to Chengdu, and I had another episode which is reflecting this perception issue we may have, a perception problem we may have in China. I was sitting during official dinner next to the deputy mayor of this Chengdu, and after a very nice, polite conversation, when the 14th dish appeared on the table, he said, why Polish president signed the declaration with Mike Pence, which is anti-Chinese, which is a declaration of war against China. I was trying to explain, oh, come on, the Polish president got no executive power. So far, there is no official point of view of Poland in case of 5G and Huawei, and the statement made by Poland with a statement made by Polish president and Mike Pence is just symbolic. And gentlemen look at me very seriously and said, yes, you are right. It's anti-Chinese symbolic. I'm traveling to China for many years, and it never happened to me like that. That people are so bluntly underlying that our role is a role of a closest follower of China after Canada or maybe Australia. But may I draw your attention to the fact that the Polish government, current Polish government, emphasizing its very special relations, you may like it or not, with the United States, is not closing all doors. It's very difficult for Poland to say yes, we should continue cooperation with Huawei, but equally difficult is to say we should terminate cooperation with Huawei, because there is quite a strong pressure from business circles. Whatever we have in our pockets, if it's Play or it's Orange, this one is still working on Huawei base. My Apple is working on Huawei base. And 5G development so far by Polish companies spend on the millions so far are still based on Huawei. And finally, our Chinese partners not fully understand this tricky position of Poland, that we are on one hand having our special ties with America, which are extremely important for the current government, but at the same time we are trying to find the solutions not to spoil completely relations with Beijing. Prime Minister Morawiecki during the last summit of prime ministers in Dubrovnik, made a couple of concessions to Chinese. One of them is actually put into life, which are which is connected with the, broadly speaking, transport. Anyway, well, Mr. Professor, as you know, as we all know, it's a tricky situation for Poland. But what is important to notice that there was no statement from Poland. Poland didn't become the first country in United Europe who kicked out Huawei from our borders. That's my short comment. Yang?
I think that is it. I see Mr. Stanisław, please comment. No, on the.
So sorry.
Thank you very much.
It's a heritage of Professor Gawlikowski.
First of all, thank you very much for interesting presentation to both of you. And my questions, I think, to both of you. However, Mr. Majman mentioned format 17+1, and you've said it doesn't work. I agree with that. And my question to both is, what is the future of this format? Could you somehow comment this? And the second question concerns the trade. In fact, trade deficit, which we have, Poland in the trade with China. Could you somehow comment this situation and to show us the way to go out from this situation? Thank you very much.
You Yang, 16+1 format working or not? Why? Come on.
Let me try to respond to the question whether 16+1 functions in Poland, in the region. Because the policy was announced, dated back to 2012. And if we look at the investment so far from China to Poland, in terms of sectors, we noticeably in the infrastructure energy sector, they were led by state-owned enterprises. So in this regards, there are Power China, there are several Chinese companies has won either the public tender or has closed M&A deals, transactions successfully here in Poland, which are very grateful and satisfactory so far. If we look at sectors such as in terms of greenfield investment, we have Nuktek, we have Hombo. Hombo is typical private-owned enterprise. We will say it's not only the state gives signal, the private sector, because the decision is made by private business owners. So I think in this regard, my advice for the Polish institution or Polish business sector would be to take more proactive approach and to target the potential Chinese companies and to promote yourself actively. Because as we see, the majority of the current Chinese outbound investors, they're no longer state-owned. There are lots of private-owned business owners based on their past decade or 3 or 4 decades experience in trade and investment as well. So this is my answer to you. And in terms of trade deficit, I would say it's a similar story. It's you need to do more promotion. I remember when China started the opening up and reform, the prime minister, the vice premier, many former predecessors of premiers did enormous promotion, travel to countries, travel with delegations and invite delegations. So lots of effort, lots of energy has been put into the attractive trade and investment initiative. In this regard, we see also Chancellor Merkel, in his during her tenure, basically she traveled to China on annual basis, at least once a year. And last year was the largest ever German delegation. And this month, 2 weeks ago, we see President Macron led the not only the French delegation, but representing the whole European Union. So in this delegation, it's not only French, there are German, there are the main industrial leaders of the European Union. So this is a part of the way to do business with China from top-down approach. So in the case of Poland, we need to do both top-down and down-top approaches. That would be the most efficient and effective way. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Can I add something?
Sławek, please.
Yeah, I fully agree with this top-down approach. Actually, it's the secret Polish president Andrzej Duda wants to go to China again, and there are some negotiations about it. But he cannot just go and come back. And the point is the lack of the essence. During the visit of Xi Jinping in Poland 2016, we prepared 42 MOUs, memoranda of understanding, 42. If you ask me which of them was ever put into life, I will have a problem. Maybe Yang is younger and she may remember something. But okay, Duda wants to go, everybody wants to get him there, but there is no actual reason to make a trip and to see the second time the Great Wall. But 3 points, 17 plus 1 in the future of 17 plus 1. I was lying that it's not working, because the 16 are split into 2. It's not working as a 5 plus 1. It means that it's not working in 5 EU countries, Hungary, Slovakia, Poland, and so on. But it is but the opposite. It's not working with the 11 EU countries, but it is working with the 5 Western Balkan countries, for very simple reason.
Especially Serbia.
Serbia, Montenegro, Northern Macedonia, on very simple reasons. As we all know, we have an access to a lot of money from European Union, from various other sources. If highway in Macedonia leading to the Albanian border is not by Sino-Hydro from China, then nobody would build it. Yeah. If highways in Bosnia-Herzegovina, yeah, or bridge in Belgrade is not built by Chinese, nobody would ever build this bridge or highway in Bosnia-Herzegovina. A very simple reason: those countries have very difficult access to financing. And if you take the Chinese financing, which is tough, which is not sexy for us in our part of the world, but is sexy in Belgrade and is sexy in Skopje, plus really state-of-the-art Chinese infrastructure experience, yeah? Then it means that for these 5 countries out of 16, the platform works. And of course, it will always work as a ceremonial meeting place of the prime ministers. Our realistic Chinese friends a year ago tried to convince their Eastern European countries not to organize it every year. The Chinese said, why shouldn't we meet once upon 2 years? But the Balkan countries insisted, let's meet every year. And poor Li Keqiang was sitting in Dubrovnik during one day, meeting 16 prime ministers, everybody coming with his own agenda. I was really very sorry looking at him. Yeah. Actually, Morawiecki was the nicest guy in the company because his visit was so short that he entered and left. And about trade, yes. There's dramatic asymmetry between Chinese exports and Polish exports. It's 14. It used to be 10, 11 good years to 1, and now it's 14 to 1. And there is at least 2 important reasons for it. The more investments, more industry in Poland, Chinese investment, but Japanese, Korean, whatever, the import from China will go up. More investment will have, the trade of balance will be worse. Because 60% of what we are importing from China are not toys, dolls, and shoes, but are components and semi-products for the Polish industry. As simple as that. And the more dynamic economic growth we got in Poland, the reindustrialization of Poland, then more goods we shall need from China. You remember this year we had a problem with the pharmaceuticals in Polish pharmacies, because our major supplier of pharmaceutical components, China, failed. You see, it's people are very critical in the newspapers. Oh, look, asymmetry, 114, 112. No, it's positive. It means that we are developing, and we need more industrial goods coming to us from China. And there's one more reason for this negative balance: it's a structure of trade. The balance is better for us if the prices of copper are going up. Prices of copper going down, balance is worse, because depending upon the year, between 21 and 34% of all Polish copper, of all Polish exports, is just one commodity, copper. Like in medieval times, nothing to be proud about. And even worse, in the recent 2 years, exports of Polish developed goods like electric products, like machinery for mining industry, for furniture industry, is dramatically going down. Our export of technology is going down. What we are selling is a copper and furniture and chemicals. And the contrary to stereotype, we are not selling food to China. Thank you.
Thank you very much. There are some other questions, please. Maybe I say a few words concerning this uncomfortable situation for us with our close relation with our colleagues from other side of ocean and our relation with China. Maybe the solution is in a cooperation between Europe and China. And in the framework of that cooperation, we can be more flexible and more open and active. And the perspectives are relatively good. If I know that in April next year, all commission will go to China, to Beijing, for them discussion between the direction of European Commission and China. And also, it is planned the great summit in Leipzig in September next year, with participation of President Xi Jinping and all leaders from 27 countries of EU. I think that this atmosphere can make easier our uncomfortable situation and development of relation with China without looking on the limitation created by our powerful colleague from Washington. Please. The question you can put also in Polish, that's no problem.
Just last thing I should tell you. We are talking about the Polish exports. It's not growing, and deficit is not. Deficit is growing. Let me say what is the support for Polish business people. We used to have a so-called WPHI, sections, sections, promotion and investment sections of the Polish embassies. We got one in Beijing and we got one in Shanghai. And we were complaining very much that the system of supporting Polish business expansion to China is not effective enough, because there was just two. And well, let's face it, I was not very enthusiastic about those ambassadors, sorry to say, about those sections, because they were purely bureaucratic, and they were sort of a landing place for the second-rate politicians from Poland. We all know them, and it was of course fantastic if somebody really brilliant got there, but it was his hobby and not a system. It was not a system. The system was lousy. And after 2016, 15, the new government decided to change the system. and create everywhere in the world, by the way, 67 now, to open the companies representing Polish promotion interests, trade offices based on the local law. And the result is that we were complaining that there are only 10 people working for the Polish export promotion, and there are now 2 people all over China working on the Polish export promotion. Embassy, German embassy, employs in Beijing 70 commercial officers. No more comments, I suppose, needed.
Thank you very much. From my experience, not only Germany, but Netherlands. If I remember, in China, they had in the middle of 2010, maybe 2000, the period of my mission, the Netherlands have maybe 20-25 well-prepared diplomat working on the economic relations, trade relation with China. It from our side, we had sometimes, as President said, we had maybe 2, sometimes up to 6 people working on the trade relations. Please come here if you. No, come, please.
Mike is waiting for you. I just want to share some thoughts.
Okay, good.
It's okay? Okay, thank you for your presentation. From my own work experience, I think maybe it's possible that, we approach Chinese markets in the wrong way. You see, no matter it's 17+1 or any European countries, to be honest, most European countries are manufacturing very similar products. No matter in machinery, in heavy industry, or in Poland, in agriculture, many countries actually are producing the similar things. You're participating in international exhibitions, but most of the companies, most of the Eastern European countries are selling the similar things. How can you're actually you're competing with each other. In China, the market is one market.
We are the biggest.
So you see, the problem is that, mostly the Chinese government organize the exhibitions only for the show. It's for the influence, then for the promotion, not for the solid business. This is more like a platform to how to build a business. Not like they will take your hands and, okay, here is what you're gonna do, step 1 to step Z. Not like that, of course it won't do that. So I think from our European perspective view, we're wrong about that. We need to find a better way, more innovative ways, how to engage the Chinese markets. Not the other way around, we expect too much, but you need to do something from your side. You need to see, for example, China is a huge country indeed, but the market is limited. So you need to have more innovative, creative way to approach them. For example, Poland, what kind of industry you have? What kind of agricultural products you have that can stand out from the rest? And then you can approach, for example, let's say in China, Shandong is a very agricultural province, or in northeast of China. And you can cooperate with in agricultural sector. For example, if you have something good, you can learn from them. If you have something good, you learn from them. So based on the industry, and based on the province to province or city to city cooperation, might be more effective. Not from the top. We build the platform. Okay, you just do whatever. In the end, nothing will be done, to be honest.
Shandong, we export coal mine equipment to Shandong province.
70 years.
Yeah. So
Thank you very much for your
okay,
question.
Thank you.
Yuan, good.
Thank you. Thank you very much for comment. I fully agree. Innovation from business sectors. I would like to make one supplement, quickly respond to Professor in terms of the evaluation of 16+1 or 17+1. When you consider the 17+1, please do not look at it like segregatedly. Please take a consideration of the 17+1 and under the EU-China framework, and in the bigger picture would be what's the relations between Poland, between China-US trade war, because we all live in a kind of symbiosis. So it's not that just Poland and China. Of course, we can have bilateral cooperation, but there are also multilateral, multi-regional cooperation, right? And on the other hand, in terms of trade surplus, what I notice is a lot of Polish companies imports from China various components or semi-products, and then Poland is a large, could be one, I would say, one of the largest manufacturer base factory in the European Union. So there is an assumption, of course, it can develop into a PhD thesis to make economic research in this respect, whether the products was exported from Poland to the Western countries like Germany or to further market US, and then further back to China as the completed products. So this is a very interesting, this will be an interesting topic to study. And on the other hand, of course, we know the US government has already confronted China as the strategic competitor. And what we see, one of the consequences is the tech company restrictions imposed on Huawei, imposed on ZTE, and imposed on various transactions. For example, the Qualcomm, NXP, and micro semiconductors whatsoever. But for Poland, whether Poland will be a victim, as a professor has asked, in my opinion, unnecessarily, or preferably no. I think because I'm pro-Poland. I'm in Poland. I witnessed the Polish success, and I am here. And I do admire the people's wisdom, and I think Polish people are very tough. Yeah, it's not the choice between Russia and Germany or China and the US. No, you're very tough people, and tough people always find solutions and wisdoms. And what I see is the US government has what we see that President Donald Trump, in terms of regulatory perspective, in 2018, August the 13th, he has signed the Foreign Investment Risk Review Modernization Act of 2018. We call it FIRMA, under the framework of the CFIUS, the Committee of Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS. And we see China, the Chinese government, as announced by President Xi early this month. On the national level, there will also be a new foreign investment law enter into force January the 1st, 2020. And we see the Chinese government dedicated to Made in China 2025 national scheme, as well as national strategy, President Xi's roadmap to socialist modernization further to 2050. And in Poland, we see the Morawiecki plan, economic plan for supporting global expansion of Polish business, supporting R&D to develop a new innovative economy. So I see lots of things in common, in momentum between Poland and China. Thank you.
Thank you, please.
I fully agree with you, with your point, and any relations with the prime ministers will not replace normal trading. But the major problem Poland got in China is an image problem. It's a perception. In 2010, we made a research. What is the image of Poland among the educated Chinese 30+, Shanghai, Beijing? And actually, we received the results we expected to get. Where is Poland? Possibly in Europe, but maybe in Russia. Which country is bigger, Belgium or Poland? Of course, Belgium. Probably the Chinese are eating, the reason is very simple, they are eating Belgian fries. Frytki belgijskie, everywhere in Chinese cities. What type of Polish people are more or less we wanted to get from Chinese friends? from Chinese respondents. A type of Russians, but definitely poorer. And when you ask majority of our Chinese partners, officials, business people, Poland, they have stereotypes coming back from the socialist time. Poland, agriculture country. Poland, agriculture country. I remember when Miss Yu Yang was coming to Poland a few years ago, her mama told her not to go because it's all mafia country. By the way, Yu Yang was so kind today to say that Polish are tough, but usually she says Polish men are soft. Okay.
Thank you very much. There are some other questions, please. In that situation, I think that we can close our meeting. Please, naturally.
Can I make a piece of advertising? Those who want to hear Ms. Yu Yang speaking longer than today are most welcome. It's Tuesday, your conference? Yeah, all welcome to Krakow on Tuesday, Jagiellonian University, a conference about the challenges for young generation of Asia. Challenges for young generation of Asia. If there is somebody by mistake who wants to hear more from me, she will kill me for talking too much. I just got during our meeting information from Dr. Jacek Bartosiak that he put a conversation between him and me on China and Russia and whatever into his website called Strategy and Future. Thank you.
And
it was advertising.
We will have the next meeting by the end of January next year. I took this occasion and wish you Happy Christmas and Happy New Year. All the best to you. Thank you very much for your presence.
And last one word. Actually, Dentons, we have over 45 offices in China.
The American company with 45 offices in China.
Yeah, we have over nearly 30 offices in the European region. Yeah. So if you have any questions, please, you are more than welcome to contact me. And in terms of market entry, in terms of trade, investment, market access, capital market, whatsoever.
Lawyers always make a profit on wars.